Hey, I'm Jared, and you're watching How to Animate Studio. This is Workflow Basics Episode 2, and what we're doing is trying to create a Batman character from sketch to animation. Our objectives are to distribute art to layers. We're going to create a bone system, and we're also going to bind all of our artwork to those bones using points and layers. Looking closer at the layers palette, there are some I'd like to highlight before we get started. The vector layer we're familiar with. We created one of those in episode 1. We're going to create a bunch more when we get started here in a second. The group layer is basically a folder where you can keep all sorts of types of layers. It's for organization. A switch layer is very unique. It's also a group folder. You can switch back and forth between any layer that's inside of it. So it's really valuable for lip sync or blinking or anything like that. A bone layer is also a group layer, but you use it to create some sort of skeleton or bone system, and anything inside of that can be affected by those bones that you draw basically on top of this folder. So we're going to use all of these except for the basic group one. But first, we're going to break our artwork up into multiple vector layers. So let's start easy and use our point selection tool and select both eyes, and we're going to cut it and make a new vector layer. We're going to name it eyes, and I like to be specific. Open, and then paste. Okay, we're going to get into a lot of repetition, so here's a great shortcut. Option, right click, and it'll select the layer right below your mouse. We need to go back to the source layer to start cutting more artwork from. So I'm going to select the mouth. You can click and drag, or you can just simply click on it. Again, cut, new vector, mouth. Okay. Let's address an issue or a mistake that I made in episode 1. I didn't color the clasp, so I'm going to just delete it. I think it looks fine without it. If you want to color that, that's fine, but that's up to you. The front cape, I'm going to cut that and make its own vector layer. I'm going to call that cape front. Make sure to paste your artwork. Sometimes you get carried away and you forget to paste it. You're like, oh man. All right, the torso is going to be several parts. The belt, the shirt, the skin, and the mask. Okay. When you cut it, you should know, okay, I got everything. New vector torso. Oop. You can move around and go, okay, did I get everything there? Looks like it to me. Okay. This is going to be the cape back. That should be behind everything. You can also drag layers up and down the layers palette to organize them and to arrange them. Okay, now we have some limbs. All right, I'm going to start with this guy here. Cut, new vector. What would you call this? Is this the right arm or right hand or left hand? I see this as the left hand. Some people call that the right hand because that's Batman's right hand. Make sure you get the right tool. Cut. That's going to be the left arm. That's going to be the right arm. That's going to be the right hand. Make sure you paste it. That needs to go up one. There we go. We have a couple more. We have the left leg. Left foot. Needs to go above the left leg. We have the right leg. And then the last layer, I do cut it from that layer, is going to be the right foot. And we need to bring that up. Okay. Ooh, that looks pretty cool. All of our layers are separate. I don't need this one anymore. There's nothing on this layer. I'm going to dump it. Go ahead and give yourself a save. We've made some pretty good progress. That's a good time for it. Okay, let's introduce a new type of layer. New switch layer. Okay, I'm going to use this for eyes. This should be at the top, and I'm going to drag whatever layer I want to into that folder. You can notice that it's going to turn red. If it's not red, it's going to put it above. So I need it to be completely red. Now that indent right there means this eyes open is inside of the eyes switch layer. Okay. Let's take a look at the eyes that we've drawn. These are an abomination. We drew them in Illustrator and they came into this program with 1,000,000 points. That's not going to do. We can modify them or we can draw new eyes in this program with their native tools. And that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to delete artwork from the eyes open layer, and I'm going to use my drawing tools in this program. I'm going to use the oval tool, and I'm going to drag out a circle. But first, take a look at what it's going to do. It's going to fill it with white. It's going to put a stroke that's black on it. I like to draw things and kind of fix them later. So I'm going to hit Shift and draw out a circle. If I hit Q, I can then take off the stroke. Hit Enter if you have the legacy tools. And now we have a beautiful circle with 4 points. That's just like what we drew in Illustrator. So sometimes you have to do that. I want a better eye though. He looks too friendly, so I want a menacing eye. I'm going to use my Transform Points tool, and I'm going to select the top point right here, and I'm going to start manipulating this shape. All right. He should be more menacing. So I'm going to use that tool, and then I'm going to use this curvature tool right here. I'm going to bring in the corners, so you can use that and click on those. Toggle back to my other tool by pressing T. I can bring this curve out a little bit more. So just like that, we have a much cooler eye. Once you have that eye figured out, I'm going to copy and paste it, and I'm going to flip that artwork right there on this layer and bring it over there. So I haven't created a new layer at all. I'm just drawing on this layer and drawing new artwork. Okay. So those are eyes open. I want you to duplicate that. It's going to duplicate the whole layer, all the artwork on the layer, and let's call this one eyes closed or blink or whatever you want to call it. So let's make a pose for the eyes that are blinking. So you can select all of the artwork or one at a time, however you want to do this. I'm going to hit T for transform points, and I'm going to transform these all together so they kind of come down and squint a little bit like a blink. Okay, so we have two eyes now, and notice one of them is kind of active and the other one's grayed out. So that means that you can only show one at a time. Okay, our eyes closed is the active one. If I right click on this layer, I can activate whatever layer I want to at any point in time. That's the cool part about switch layers. The second new layer we're going to try is a new bone layer. Okay, this is going to be the container that holds all of the artwork that we're going to put these bones on top of. I'm going to call this Batman. And I'm going to bring all of this artwork in there. By shift clicking, I can select all my layers and again, put those inside of that folder. And you can see they're indented. I can also hide them all like that. If I hit escape, now I can view my whole canvas like this. And now we're ready to start rigging with bones. But first, let's take a look at the different types of rigging options. The first method is flexi binding. This uses a force field of sorts to keep artwork moving. So whatever's within this range will be affected. and you can control the range there. So it's very handy for bitmap work like Photoshop files or JPEGs. Point binding it's going to look real similar when I move this around, but what's happening here is that there's points that are bound to bones. So this bone that's red has 2 points of this line that are stuck to the bone, and in this bone there's only 1 point. So when I move this around, those 2 points move with this bone. Really handy. Layer binding, I could use 2 different layers. So there's part 1 and then part 2. And I bind the layer to this bone. So this first layer, part 1, is bound to this bone right here. And when I move it, that layer moves. And if I move this layer, that layer moves. So when you combine it, like if you had an arm with a forearm and a bicep, it would work really well. You're going to get this sharper corner. I can do the sharper corner in point binding as well, but I can't do so much the rounded elbow, the noodle arms with layer binding. So it's a little limiting, but it's another way to do it. The smooth joint is a relatively new addition. What we do is we make 2 bones, and it moves similar to the point or flexi binding, but what it's going to do is it's going to create this joint for you automatically. Really handy. I use it all the time. Really great way to bind artwork. We're going to build a bone structure on top of this bone layer now using the Add Bone tool. First, drag out a large control bone, and it's red. Just notice that it's red. The next bone I draw will go up to basically where his chin is, and now that's red. What's happening is that every bone you draw is being parented to the previous bone. If I hit this button here, reparent bone, I can see there's arrows pointing. So this second bone is the child of this first bone. And it'll continue like that as long as you want. If I draw another one here, and I look at this one is the child of this one, and this one is the child of this one. We can reparent bones and do all sorts of crazy stuff, but just so you know. Now I need to draw bones in the arms and the legs, and I need to pick a different parent. I'm going to select the Select Bone tool, and then I'm going to select the Add Bone tool. But I really want to get accurate with my arms, so here's how I do that. I go to Wireframe, so I can see where my artwork actually is. There's the arm. Okay, so again, my parent is the center bone, that second one we drew, and I'm going to drag out a couple of bones, one from the shoulder to the elbow, and a second one from the elbow to the wrist. And then a third one, you can draw this if you want to. That one is optional, but I like to draw it right there. I need to do another set for the right arm. So again, I'm going to press B, select the parent that I want to go from, press A, and do the same thing. Drag out a bone here, and a bone there, and another bone there. Okay, let's take a look in the other mode here. Looks pretty good. I need to do the same thing for the legs. Okay, I'm going to pick the control bone for the starting point of this one. So I hit B, clicked on that one, and I'm going to drag some more bones. Again, I'm going to go to Wireframe. It's just really handy. I'm going to start here. Oops. Start here. I'm pressing Shift so it gives me a straight one. And then another one down to the ankle. And then a third one for the foot. Press B. A lot of repetition here. Thigh. Second bone. Third bone. All right, if you go to the preview option where you can see your artwork, it should look like a skeleton has been created. Let's add some target bones. I want you to zoom in to where his feet are. Deselect any bones by pressing Enter, and we're going to add 2 bones. One that goes down from this foot, enter or deselect, and then a second one that goes down from this one and deselect. These bones are not parented at all. They're free floating. We're going to use them as targets. I need to name them. Select the bone and name it. Something simple like R. This one can be L. Okay. I want this bone to target my L bone. So you can go here and go to target and then choose it in the list. There are keyboard shortcuts for it too, but I want to show you visually. Again, we're going to select this bone, go to target, right. Something changed right there. You should notice that. That is now a target. That'll help us with animation. Finally, we need bones for the cape. Okay, these are going to come from this midsection bone here. I'm going to select that with B, and I'm going to add 3 bones. One major one, a smaller one, and then one more. Okay, I need to color these to help me out a little bit. So I'm going to make all 3 of these. I can select multiple bones at the same time. I'm going to make these yellow. So you can go up here and you can color them. At the same time, you can also move them around. So let's take a look at how you manipulate bones right now. If I use my transform bone tool, or T, and I put it over a bone, I see I have some options. I can move or translate a bone. I can rotate a bone, depending on where you put it. Or I can make a bone larger or smaller. So you can always move these bones around. So they're very, very flexible. So I'm actually going to move this guy right to the center. So it's right in the middle of the cape. Okay, let's reduce the bone strength of all the bones. We haven't seen it yet, but if you press S or bone strength, all of them have that little force field around it. I'm not going to use that for now. It's there, it's available, but I don't want to use it. Control A, drag to the left, or you can type 0 right there. Press enter to deselect. Next, I'm going to bind layers to bones. I separated all my artwork, so I have that option. It's pretty easy. You select your layer, you pick the bind layer tool, and you click the bone that you want to bind to. The mouth, you can do the same thing. We can do that with the hands. Bind it to whatever layer you feel is going to be the one closest. And we made those on purpose. Feet, same thing. Foot and foot. So those pieces of art are bound to where those bones are. Next, we're going to do some point binding. The torso is a little complicated. It has multiple shapes, and we have multiple bones. It's kind of hard to see. So first I need to hide this cape bone here. I'm going to make that shy. So I selected it and hit shy. It's still there. It's just hidden. Next, I know I'm going to need extra points in the skin layer here. So I'm going to select this piece of art, hit A, add a couple more points here. And I'm going to make sure that curvature is 0. You can type that in here or drag all the way to the left. And I'm going to drag those points down close enough to right there. I've done this a few times, so I know kind of what the pitfalls are. All right, point binding is different. First, you select your bone. Next, you press I. Then you select the points you want to bind to that bone and press spacebar, and they should change in size, all the points. If these were colored bones, those points would become that color. I'm going to do it again. B, I, select, spacebar. If I go back up to my bone layer and I press Z for the manipulate bone tool, I can start to animate and see what this looks like. I can start to move bones around. Okay, this looks pretty good. Okay, all right. We could also bind the cape layer just as a layer binding to this bone here. So there we go. That moves a little better. If I need to reset, I go forward 1 frame and back 1 frame. I'm sure there's a better way to do it. Continually saving. We're going to do some point binding with the arms. Okay, this is very specific, but it's point binding. So I'm going to select my bone. I need to select my arm layer, so use that shortcut option, right click. All right, there's my arm layer. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select just my shoulder and bind it to that bone. This bone, I'm going to use the elbow and the wrist. So when I move that, that's how it moves. It looks good. I'm going to do the same thing over here. Select this bone, I, spacebar. Select this bone, I, those 2 points, spacebar. All right, the legs are up. Okay, I don't typically bind any points to the thigh bone. I either bind them to the stomach or the main bone here. I'm going to try the stomach. Sometimes I don't get it right, and we'll see here. Okay, so I have this one selected. I have on my right layer, spacebar. The knee and the ankle are going to get bound to this one. Same thing over here. So I'm going to select this bone, select this layer, spacebar. This bone, select these points, spacebar. Save. Let's not forget our cape bones that we brought in. To show those, you can go to Bone, Hide, Show, Shy Bones, and there they are. Before I do that, I need to go to my cape layer. I think I have too many points, so I'm going to select those 2 points in and go ahead and delete them. Okay, this is point binding, so I'm going to select my bone, select which points, and go ahead and bind those. Sometimes I'm guessing. I'm kind of like, yeah, I think that's right. Let's see how it goes. You can always rebind it later. Let's try that. I'm gonna color some more bones. I like how this one is colored. I'm gonna color all the arms and hands. Let's go with orange on those. I'm also gonna color all of the legs and feet. Let's do something different like purple. I didn't do the target bones, so we have some color differentiation there. Okay, the feet need to be independent angles. If you haven't played with this yet, go ahead and take the control bone with your manipulate bone tool, and you can see it's starting to move pretty well, but the feet are pretty goofy. We need those to be independent angles. I'm going to B, shift, select the second bone, go into bone constraints, and hit independent angle. That way they don't move with the whole bone structure. They'll kind of stay. Oh, I can move them once you get into the timeline. I can move them just fine, but they'll behave themselves a little bit better. I'm going to select the leg bones. I want them to be a little stretchy. So I'm also going to go into my bone constraints, and I'm going to dial up the IK stretching. I'm going to go 1.25. Okay, so that means when we're bouncing around, it'll stretch. Those 2 bones will stretch a little bit. Okay, arms look good. Torso looks good. Cape looks good. Everything's working well. Okay, we have bound our character. We are ready to go for animation. All right, you made it past episode 2. It's a hard one, but it's an important one to get down and practice. Episode 3 is waiting for you. This will be a fun one where we get to do acting and really get a performance out of our character once we've rigged them. So I hope you're enjoying yourself still, and I will see you next time.